Hello and welcome everyone. On behalf of the Berkeley Art Museum Pacific Film Archive, I'd like to welcome all of you to this lovely special event that we're doing tonight. This is an event we're calling Contemporary Ballet by Women Choreographers. It's called Part 1 because it's going to be a two-part series. The local choreographer, Kathryn Roszak, has put together an amazing program of 4 different local ballet companies, all performing in Berkeley. 3 of the ballet companies actually recorded in the Berkeley Art Museum, and 1 in nearby Tilden Park. And we're very excited to present that work to you. These will be presented in part 2. We're going to show you some teasers today and kind of whet your appetite and get you excited and ready to join us for our next live stream, which will be on May 26th. So today we're mostly going to be teasing that a little bit, showing you some clips and various things that you can look forward to in May. And the real feature of tonight's event is a conversation between Kathryn Roszak, who is the director of Danse Lumière, and Celia Fuchil, who's the artistic director of Smuin Ballet. And I'm very excited to hear their conversation and what they talk about. And so the first thing I'd like to do is introduce Kathryn Roszak. So Kathryn, there you are. Thanks for joining us here tonight.
Hi, it's wonderful to be involved with the Berkeley Art Museum and PFA, Pacific Film Archive.
Great.
And present women choreographers. We're very grateful.
Well, we're very grateful to have you and have you as part of this this series that you put together. Can you maybe tell the audience a little bit about just very briefly about yourself before we talk about what the event is and things that you put together?
I'm a choreographer. I'm native to the Bay Area, but I also work in New York City, and I'm the artistic director of Danse Lumière. And our work specializes mostly in translating literature to the stage in innovative and exciting ways.
Fantastic. So, yeah, for those of you who don't know, Kathryn's been a mainstay in the Bay Area dance scene for quite a while, and the Danse Lumière just puts on some of the most interesting and evocative and provocative work, in the last several years. So, it's just really a joy to have you as part of this, and we're very happy that you're able to put all this special programming together. And one of the things that you were very excited about, it seemed like, was actually doing things in our museum.
Absolutely. And especially when I saw that the building was empty during COVID, I thought, let's bring life into the museum. And this was one of the reasons that, we work very, very hard to bring the artists into the building again, because we want to get back to live performance. This is actually an experience that we're presenting that's part of COVID, because while we were all under one roof, we couldn't be there at the same time. But we wanted to have that kind of unity and that feeling coming back into the dance world. It's as if we're a sleeping beauty and we're waking up.
That's a really nice way to put it. And I think just to that point, I think we're going to show a very brief little montage right now that our video producer Dave Taylor put together of some of the things that were taped in the museum building, and give you kind of whet your appetite for the full versions of all these which you will see in about 1 month's time. So Dave, if you're ready to roll that clip. fantastic. I love it. It's exciting. I've seen that a couple of times now, and it's really just really gives us a good sense of what was going on in the building that day that we shot. Three different ballet companies coming in, and of course, due to coronavirus restrictions, we had to have people come in at different times and only small numbers of people, as you saw. So very fun and full day, I think. Now that we're back from that clip and hopefully whetted your appetite, again, May the 26th, which is a Wednesday, is a day we're going to show you the full versions of all of those. But I'd like to bring Kathryn into conversation with Celia Fuchile, who is the artistic director, as I mentioned, of Smuin Ballet. It was one of the three companies that you just saw some clips of, and I'll let them have a conversation. I'll kind of go into the background, but I will mention to anyone participating and watching today, if you have questions and want to type them into the Q&A section at the end, we will do some question and answering. But for now, Kathryn, why don't you maybe give a brief introduction to Celia, and I'll let the two of you take it away.
Well, Celia Fuchile and I actually go back quite a ways because we danced together at the San Francisco Opera Ballet. And Celia was always a lovely dancer. And of course, she's now leading the Smuin Ballet and is doing it so successfully. She works very well with the dancers. Smuin Ballet has terrific dancers who are full of personality and also has a repertoire that draws such a wide audience and brings many new people to the dance because of the themes, which are often popular, the music, which is also coming from the mainstream culture. And actually now Smuin is working with some of the cutting edge choreographers and composers in the Bay Area. And Celia has been at the helm of this company, running it as a tour de force, and I'm just thrilled to be here with her. I wanted to say that this is a preview of the program that will come up later on in May, and it features women contemporary ballet choreographers. And we see many women on stage, but not often in leadership. And now we have women artistic directors in the Bay Area, not only with Smuin Ballet, but with Diablo Ballet and with Danse Lumière. And we also have wonderful representation of women ballet choreographers with the Berkeley Ballet Theater. So I wanted to just say before I get into it with Celia that all of these works were rehearsed and performed during COVID with dancers in quarantine and in pods. And we'll talk about that whole experience. One work was even created during COVID over Zoom, with rehearsals taking place in a car and the choreographer directing the dancers from a cell phone outside the studio. Things have been very extreme, to say the least, in terms of continuing to move forward in dance. And I'd now like to mention that I saw Celia's company, the Smuin Ballet, at John's Grill in San Francisco last October. And it was a great moment because nobody had seen live performance in so long coming out of this quarantine spell. And I thought it was so gutsy and so raw and wonderful for Smuin to go to the Grill, which is of course the home of Dashiell Hammett's Maltese Falcon, and put on this absolutely tremendous show. And so Celia, I wanted to ask you, aren't you still continuing to perform at John's Grill? Is that going on right now?
Hi, Kathryn. Yes, we are. Unfortunately, today we were rained out, but we will be there next Sunday, May 2nd. One of our pods will be performing once again. We've certainly all had to learn how to innovate through this pandemic. It's been an extraordinary year. Exhausting in many ways, but we've been challenged, and I think we're really pleased with our efforts at Smuin Ballet and just trying to stay creative and to stay in touch with people.
You mentioned before we kind of went on the air that you had made this decision. A lot of companies, larger companies in particular, had to go on hiatus and were just completely shut down. But you just bit into to the whole challenge and decided to keep going. Can you tell us about this? I think you were filming, you were streaming, you've been in unusual locations.
Exactly. Well, with the weather in the Bay Area, the nice weather coming in the fall, we were able to invest in a portable sprung floor that would give us some outdoor options, knowing that we would not be able to be performing indoors with theaters closed indefinitely. And so that was our start in preparing to dance outdoors. We didn't know how we were going to make that happen, but we started to look at private residences of some of our patrons and did a number of performances for 20 or 30 people and several performances in an afternoon. And I just wanted to make sure that our dancers had a chance to keep performing and creating, and that our whole team could stay employed, because I just could not imagine the lag if we had to just shut down for 12 months or 18 months and then try to gather more dancers or an administrative team or a production team. It would be catastrophic, I think, to then try to quickly ramp back up.
Yes,
so
I thought it was great that you were able to do it. It was like a victory. And I also felt that being able to sit there with the outdoor stage in this historic part of San Francisco and to see so many audience members having a steak or martini or whatever vegetarian offerings they have at John's Grill it was classic, and it was new at the same time.
It really was. Well, when I saw that they were performing, that they were having outdoor dining. And I know John Constant, the owner of John's Grill, and I said we should be performing there. And so we were able to work it out. And it was literally the first major company in San Francisco performing to a live audience. But we had the restrictions that have been quite strict in the Bay Area and in the state of California. And we know it's for our own good and for the health of our population, but it has been a challenge. And so while outdoor performances in a park were not permitted, we found out that it was permissible if the audience maintained social distance. And so because the people were at tables that were socially distant, we had a captured audience, and they were able to maintain their safe distance while watching a live performance. And truly, as you said, the reaction to the audience at that time was just incredible. We had people that were just weeping.
Yes.
Tears of joy. And they just said, we didn't know when we were going to see live performance again. This has just been so incredible. And even though the dancers were performing in masks, eventually they could just imagine the dancers without those masks. And we made sure to say, under these masks, we have big smiles.
Yes.
The dancers were just as joyful to be performing for an audience, even if it was 60 people at tables,
Now, can you tell us about the pods? I mean, just briefly, I think most people don't know. In the dance world, we've all been hearing about pods, but I think most general audience doesn't understand what we mean by pod.
Sure. Well, we did realize that having fewer numbers was going to be the safest way to work, because if our company, some companies that are creating pods that are the size of our company, we are 13 dancers this season, and some companies have pods of 15, but what we did was split into 4, and 5 dancers. And so we have these 3 pods, and the understanding was that if one pod became sick with COVID, it wouldn't take out the entire company. That pod could isolate while the other 2 continued to work. And so thankfully, we have been so safe the entire year. We had no incidents of COVID. We were also all committed to living a risk-free life outside of the studio, which can be challenging for young dancers. They want to go out but we knew that if the company was shut down, it would mean everyone would be laid off and it would be problematic. Right. And so everyone was quite committed to that. And so in working in these small groups, we began presenting the work of our founder, Michael Smuin. He left us with an enormous library of choreography. And so, of course, we were looking for solos and duets, maybe trios. And then the dancers were able to also create works on each other. And so it ended up being a very creative opportunity in many, many ways.
Well, the cooperation and the teamwork is just, it's absolutely fantastic. And to see the dancers dance to Frank Sinatra in that setting was just super. And since we're talking about the young dancers and their creativity, we're about to see a clip in a few moments of the work of Cassidy Isaacson. And I just want to hear at this moment applaud Smuin Ballet for being so supportive of women choreographers. You have an incredible track record. You've had Amy Seibert and so many others who have come and choreographed for you. And I would also like to now hear how you're nurturing the youngest and the latest talent, choreographers such as Cassidy.
Well, really, it's by giving them opportunities. And if they don't know that it can't be done, they won't think of not throwing their name in the hat if they're given the opportunity to create. So I would never tell them that they cannot do it. And so they see me also leading this company and being very involved on the national level with Danse USA as well. I'm chair of the artistic directors of companies with budgets of 3 million and above. So to be involved on a national level. And so we created in 2008, the year after Michael Smuin passed away and I became artistic director, we started the choreography showcase, which was formalizing something that Michael had already started by giving dancers an opportunity to create on their peers. But the first time he asked me to choreograph, it was for our main stage presentation at the Palace of Fine Arts. And it was not as an incubator setting. It was not a safe feeling in any way. And I wanted to be able to give the dancers, as a choreographer, what it takes to put yourself out there. And it's a very vulnerable position to be in. And so the dancers have become used to the way in which we work in the studio. And it's a very nurturing environment and a safe place to create. And that all they need is an imagination and a wonderful idea. And they're really steered from choosing their music, creating their pieces, their cast of dancers that they want to work with, and their costuming. When we're in a theater, of course, it's working with the lighting. But it's having those opportunities. This is Cassidy's second year with Smuin, and she came to us already having started choreographing. So it was not something that I introduced to her or encouraged her to do. She was very anxious. What I would like to say, though, is that she now feels that this is the path she would want to pursue after she stops dancing, and will continue doing it. So this is something that she's discovered in herself, that she could be as passionate about creating choreography as she is about dancing it. And so this is what's very exciting, because I think a choreographer has to have that passion and that drive to create.
That's absolutely terrific. And I think that we should take a look at her work. And I know that the dancers that are in this are Therese Dean Orr and John Speed Orr, and the music is by Brendan Milburn. So let's take a look.
Were the stars all in alignment on the day that we first met? Needed help with your assignment on a tricky problem set. When you put your hand in mine, you sent shivers down my spine, and I knew it was a sign that we were meant to be, my partner in this lifelong duet. It was right back in sophomore year when I fell for you, dear, that's a fact. You were bright, you were charming and wise. I was one of those guys with no tact. Well, you delight, you intrigue, you're way out of my league, but you proved it that opposites attract. When I asked you, I guess you decided on yes, all because of our chemistry. Take it.
That was absolutely fabulous. I'm so glad we were able to see that, and we'll see the entire program again on May 26th. And I wanted to also mention that Smuin is performing at al fresco outdoor venues, including the California Shakespeare Festival this summer. And I want to also check in with you, Celia, about what you're seeing in terms of more leadership by women in dance, how you're seeing your role in the field of dance and women following this crisis.
Well, that's a great question, Kathryn. And I think the best thing I can do to encourage women is to be an example, to be, to demonstrate strong leadership. And really, so many directors that we grew up with, we've all experienced the directors in ballet, usually men, that were screamers, and there was a real sense of fear involved in towing the line and not stepping out of line, because there's always 3 girls or 4 girls or 6 girls ready to take your place. And so women are not encouraged to have a voice. And so I like to encourage that. I like to encourage them to have a voice, to be a strong, independent woman. And I think I can best do that by demonstrating how I am a leader, to set expectation, to allow people to be the individual that they are. And we do that even with our artists. We want them to express their individuality. We're not asking anyone to look like someone else or dance like someone else. And as choreographers, I would never ask them to create like anyone else. And so it really needs to be their own individual expression, and that there is a place for that.
I'm very moved by this because, of course, I remember Michael Smuin, and when I was in the school at the San Francisco Ballet, and I think you are absolutely echoing his spirit, his fierce, independent spirit, and he is living through this work and this company and everything that we see today. And I hear that in what you're saying. And before we turn to the audience so that they can ask away a lot of questions of both of us, I wanted to also mention what people will see in May coming up. Berkeley Ballet Theater is presenting Panda Chant with Daniel Rowe, choreographer, and Meredith Monk as the composer. Danse Lumière is presenting It's Raining with undiscovered Kurt songs sung by Theo Bleckman, and also Unspoken with local Grammy Award-winning composer Mads Tolling. The Diablo Ballet is presenting the Berceuse duet with choreographer Penny Saunders, and the music is by Benjamin Goddard. And Smuin will be showing the full renditions of what we saw today, Cassidy Isaacson's Under the Waterfall and Chemistry. And so I now like to open this up to everybody's questions, and I hope that people will fire away. Otherwise, I'll have more things to ask Celia.
So yes, this is Sean again chiming in. So anyone out there who does have questions or comments or anything that you want to say, please go ahead and ask them in the Q&A section of our of the Zoom. Feel free to go ahead and do that, and we'll answer some questions. I don't see anything yet, so maybe as people are thinking, Kathryn, maybe you've got 1 or 2 more things to talk to Celia about.
Yes, absolutely. In terms of the future of the company, since we've seen during COVID all of these other types of offerings, everything from, performances where people are at a drive-in to the outdoor offerings and to films, do you see this as a large part now of Smuin's identity going forward? Is there something that you found that you want to continue to explore that maybe came out of this whole COVID experience?
I think there have been many silver linings to this year, despite the myriad challenges that we've all faced when theaters closed down suddenly and we didn't know for how long that would be. We've learned different ways of reaching our audience. And although, as you mentioned, Kathryn, we're certainly all anxious to return to theater productions, and that is certainly our goal. I don't know that dancers trained to just be part of a dance film and do it once for a film. They want to be in front of a live audience and have that immediacy and have that reaction from an audience. And so we won't move away from that, but I think that there's now going to be room for virtual offerings. I think that we're all going to be expected in a way to continue to reach people. And quite frankly, I think that also closes the gap for people that when we talk about equity and making the arts available to everyone, I think that this virtual aspect is opening it up and making it more accessible to anyone who has Wi-Fi and has access. If they're unable or cannot afford to go into a theater, I mean, we are always trying to have a range of prices for our performances, but I think that this virtual aspect is going to be here to stay, whether it's live streamed or something that's recorded and then shared. But it's been a goal of ours this year, since we were not able to see our patrons in the theater, that we maintain a connection and that we maintain contact. And that's really been our goal. And so thankfully with the move, Smuin Ballet moved into their permanent home at the end of 2019, right before the pandemic. And because of that, we were able to continue to work in our own building. We exercised extreme caution with our protocols, but it allowed us an opportunity to then set up our big theater like a black box, and we were able to film in our building. So the work really never stopped. We continued in the winter months to create and film indoors. So I think this is going to be something that's part of every company's offerings now. And I think the tricky thing is going to be, how do we balance and not steal from our own audience? We want to encourage people to still come into the theaters, because that's certainly the most expensive way that we work. It's theaters are with the crew and the theater rental and everything that's incorporated into the costs of performing live is very expensive. And so we need people to come to the theater. And so how do we balance that and not have people choose not to come to the theater and watch us live instead? So it's going to be a balancing act. And so maybe some of the virtual offerings are different than what's presented live, but it's going to be a part of what we do, I think, moving forward.
I hope we continue to tour. And I did see a question coming in on the chat.
We've got a few questions coming in.
Great.
Let's see, the first one is from Pamela, who says, who are some female dancers and choreographers that have inspired you over the years? And that's open to either of you, of course. So.
Celia, do you want to?
Oh, absolutely. It's been a joy for me to be able to not only encourage Amy Syward, who started under Michael, but to be able to bring Helen Pickett here and Annabelle Lopez Ochoa. Next year, we're going to be working with Gina Patterson for the first time. And so I continue to seek female choreographers. Nicole Haskins was one of our former dancers whose work we brought back for our choreography showcase when we revived some of our former showcase pieces for that presentation. And yeah, those are some of the ones that I really enjoy. I enjoy Annabelle's theatricality, her musicality, and her daring attitude. And it's exciting to work with her. So we look forward to that again. We were going to revive her work last fall or last spring. Because of COVID, we had to change plans, but I look forward to working with her again.
In terms of inspiration, of course, there's the great Martha Graham. And I'm thinking in terms of, I'm actually moving through history by thinking this way. I was thinking a lot about Birgit Kullberg, who did the fabulous Miss Julie that we haven't seen in a great long while, Celia. I used to see that with American Ballet Theater, and it's really gripping dance drama. Yes. And of course, now it's intriguing to see people choreographers such as Crystal Pite and some of the more contemporary women who are creating a new vocabulary in dance. And again, her work is very theatrical. Now that I'm looking at it, I think I'm drawn into the drama.
So we have, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go right ahead.
No, go ahead, Sean.
All right, I was going to, we have more questions coming in, so it's lovely to be able to ask these of you. Well, we have two great minds here. Someone asks, do you see a space for hybrid virtual and live events in the future? I'm not what a hybrid virtual and live event is. I guess is up to you to think about first before you answer the question.
Well, we certainly did talk about that at Smuin in terms of, while people may be fearful to return to theaters, is there a time where not only are some seeing it live, but others are live streaming it? It's just, at this point, it's been hard to have a consistent connection with live streams so that it's an uninterrupted viewing of it, of a performance. So we have not yet been able to do that. It's been safer for us to film something and then stream it, but not live. That way we can really control the product. And I think that that's going to be one of the challenges. And so I think probably what we will do is start live streaming from the studio, where it may not be a ticketed event, but if things don't go perfectly well, because the audience is going to expect to see a performance and they're not going to want to have an interruption of some challenge. So as technology improves in the theaters, I can imagine that we would have hybrid events.
Kathryn, did you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, I was sort of just kind of riffing off the whole idea, because I'm aware that there's several efforts in the art world in terms of a Van Gogh exhibit that's immersive. And yeah, it would be wonderful, especially how do we bring the art to people? I think Celia made a very valuable point that this makes things almost more democratic. And if there was a way to make it less expensive to have these highly technical events that we stream, that we create, yes, you could use iPhones and we can become editors. On the other hand, though, I'd like to see how technology could really be embraced to make something new that then would be accessible to all. And I think it's very ironic that we are in the San Francisco Bay Area and that there has been not as much engagement with this as you would think. And I think it needs to be made more accessible to artists and more affordable. And I would hope some of the tech people might actually partner more with art. I think it was born in the beginning that technology was an arty experience when everyone was in the garage inventing the internet, and it was supposed to be democratic and for all. And it seems to have become elitist and expensive, and we need more collaboration. And I'd love to see that. So I'm opening this up. Hopefully we can have this on the museum's website, and we will invite technological artists from that world to come and work with us, because it's needed, and there'll be a synergy out of that and something that we've never seen before.
Fantastic. Let's see. I have another really provocative question here, I think. Says, have there been other organizations whose pandemic era virtual programming has inspired you? So other things you've seen or experienced, I guess.
There has been so much out there, and it is hard to see it all. And that's another
Yes.
thing of the pandemic. But I absolutely loved a piece that Penny Saunders did for Hubbard Street. I just thought it was brilliant. The use of the dancers, the narrative she had going on. It was called In Any Event, and it took place in an event space. And she had the Hubbard Street dancers, those that were either couples or roommates that could be dancing together, and filmed them at separate times. And then through the use of editing, created this incredible dance film. So what we're seeing a lot more are not just straight filmed performances, but dance films that have great use of unusual editing techniques. And I think it's almost creating its own art form. This use of dance and film, this collaboration with dance and film, and not just a straight archival performance of a show, but this blending of camera angles and this nuance is making things possible that you can't do on the stage. So I was very inspired by Hubbard Street's performance.
I also enjoyed many of the offerings, including from the Paris Opera Ballet, which would show so many people on a screen at once in different experiences and at different places and points in time. And there was a wonderful piece that they created to Prokofiev's Romeo and Juliet that showed all of the dancers working out as best they could, doing their bar at home. And it just built and built and built into a crescendo, and it was beautifully done. And I think, you know, that's what I retain from all of this, is this kind of, when we're talking about hybrid and combination and what there was that was created by artists who were pretty much in hibernation and in isolation and in quarantine. It's absolutely phenomenal.
Fantastic. So that's great. Those are some things that people can look for and look out. Let's see. There's one question here I can answer. It was that video recorded on iPhone? And no, definitely was not. We had a team of 2 professional videographers showing what you saw. Using, I think, a total of 4 cameras. So let's see. And then we have another question here from Hallie. She says, how can dance increase its audience beyond the pre-COVID levels and make dance more popular? So what can be done to get bigger audiences in?
I think that is a great, the $1 million question, certainly. I think that the dance audience is very small. And the concern certainly is across the fine arts that we see the older audience are the ones that support the arts. And so say those 50 and above, and if those are the people that are afraid of COVID and are afraid to come back and stop supporting it, it is a concern. I believe that there's a large swath of the population that doesn't know that they like dance because they haven't been exposed to it. So the question is, how do we expose people to it? And I think that we have to remove a little bit of the fear, perhaps, of the intimidation factor. If somebody says, but I don't know anything about ballet. And it's not even something that you need to know about. You have to, it's like looking at a piece of art. You don't have to know how the artist, what painting techniques the artist used. You just have to know that it touched your heart. And so if you can just allow yourself to experience that, I think many people will find that they love it. And so what we do find at Smuin is that oftentimes wives will bring their husbands, and their husbands will say, I don't really like ballet, but this is great. And, we'll say, well, this is ballet. You're not seeing tutus and pink tights, but it's all the classical training that these dancers have. And then we're seeing what we can do with ballet. But I think it's a matter of exposing more people to the art form. And hopefully with this use of virtual programming, perhaps we'll be able to attract more people. I never anticipated during a pandemic that we would be able to increase our audience, but we have in fact been able to do that because people have been able to tune in. Some people gifted a link to our ballet as a Christmas gift, and people were tuning in from Germany and Ireland and England. I mean, this one woman from LA said, you have a new fan, I'm going to be watching out for what you're doing. And so it's incredible that this would even be possible. And I think with that type of exposure, we'll hopefully be able to increase the audience.
I'm with Celia. I feel it's touching the human heart that's the most important. We had a couple of questions that dealt with technology, and I want to contrast 2 things here. I have the opportunity to do that. What impressed us about the COVID era and technology, we saw a lot of use of drones in dance and the overview, and we will actually see that on May 26th in Berkeley Ballet Theater's piece, because they shot that outdoors. They had too many dancers to be inside the museum. So Daniel Rowe's piece was filmed in Tilden Park, and there was the use of the drone. So this is something new. And we would like, once again, we would like this collaboration in the Bay Area. We want the technological artists to engage with us, we'll engage with you, and we can film with drones. In addition, that's fabulous. We can see everything from up above and marvel at it. It's a piece of theater, it's a movie. But the most important thing I think that people missed during COVID was the human touch. And to see pas de deux, intense dances for 2 and duets that are expressive and that are meaningful and show relationship. It's something I'm exploring in my work. When we talked about women choreographers, that's what I want to be able to bring. So I want to see that very special pas de deux Sometimes male choreographers are more renowned for pas de deux because they partnered and lifted the women. And so we're looking at all of this, and that's great. It's terrific. It's coming from that perspective. But I want to come from the place of the relationship between two people, male and male, female and female, male and female, new identities, all of it. What is the relationship? What do people have to say to each other? This is so important.
That's great, lovely. Thank you, Kathryn and Celia, for your answers there. And I've got another question here, which is a great chance for everyone to promote their own work, which is, someone said, the videos that you presented were beautiful. Where may I see more? And of course, if you tune in on May 26th, you'll see a lot more. But this is also a good chance for each of you to talk about places you can see other work by Smuin Ballet and by Danse Lumière and anyone else. So either of you want to field that?
Okay, sure. Thank you, Sean. We are, the easiest way to learn about what Smuin is doing is by going to our website, smuinballet.org. And we will be performing at Cal Shakes in Orinda on Mother's Day, May 9th. We'll have 2 performances there. And I think as COVID restrictions are improving, we may be able to have as many as 300 people in the outdoor amphitheater there. So it will be such an exciting moment. We did not anticipate actually being in a theater in this year. And with the use of this new floor that we purchased, we've been able to make that happen. So we're very excited about that. And we'll have a few small outdoor performances around the corner behind our building. There's an open space, and we're going to actually be doing some performances in San Francisco in the Potrero Hill area as well. And then if you sign up for our mailing list, you'll be notified of any of our virtual offerings. So you can always see those as well.
And Kathryn?
Danse Lumière has gone mainly into the interview mode during COVID. We have a residency program that we have offered for the last 5 years at the Gerasi Resident Artist Program. And last year that took place virtually as an interview with Wendy Whelan, who is the Associate Artistic Director of New York City Ballet, and Victoria Morgan, formerly of San Francisco Ballet. She now is the artistic director of the Cincinnati Ballet and had attended Gerasi. So we have opened up a kind of a dialogue, and we had local artists. We had also Christina Johnson, formerly of the Dance Theater of Harlem, and we wanted to also be cross-disciplinary. So we had Vivian Fung, who is a Bay Area composer, and we had Lauren Jonas, who runs the Diablo Ballet, and Julia Feldman of Sacramento Ballet, in a backyard conversation. So we have been having virtual conversations, and in terms of choreography, creating during COVID, over Zoom, in the cars, out of doors, wherever it needed to happen. And in the future, I think we're looking towards all of the above, but a return to live performance. I was just in New York, and I had great hope going into museums where it was only at 25%, and being able to return into the museum, to see and experience the museum is still very important. There'll be a new museum, I'm sure, in the future, but we still have the museums that we have now. And I think it's important to touch back on what we have from the past, to bring it back into the present so that we can then make the future. It's extremely important. We cannot just cast this away and say, oh, COVID came and now we're doing this, and we aren't going to be in theaters anymore, and we aren't going to be in museums anymore. I think we're going to have to re-envision what these places are. And that's the opportunity that COVID has given us.
Fantastic. This is a great chance for me, just on the coattails of that, to say that the Berkeley Art Museum galleries will be open starting this weekend. So take a look at BAMPFA.org, our institutional website, to see how you can do that. You have to reserve a timed ticket and all these sorts of things, because of all the we're only allowed to have 25% capacity. Only the galleries are open. We're not showing films or anything like that yet, but we will get there. So I want to just thank both of our panelists here today, Kathryn and Celia. It's just what a what a treat and what a tremendous conversation. I learned a lot listening, and I'm sure our audience learned a lot too. And again, I'll say, please tune in on May 26th when we'll be doing this again, only with even more people and more full dances. And it'll be a really thrilling evening. So that's something to mark on your calendar, Wednesday, May 26th. Please come back and join us again. You can find all the information on the Berkeley Art Museum website. And it just remains for me one more time to thank Celia and thank Kathryn. Kathryn especially for putting all this together. It should be it's been a great treat tonight. So thank you both.
So happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you,
Sean.
Kathryn.
And thank you, Celia, and the Berkeley Art Museum, because this is really wonderful for the museum to make a space for women's voices to be heard.
On behalf of Berkeley Art Museum Pacific Film Archive, I'd just like to say good night to everyone and thank you for joining us. I will see you next month.